The Jacques Lemaire 1967-68 Topps number 3 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, after playing a full season in the Central Professional Hockey League, Jacques is getting his first chance at NHL play. A shifty center, Jacques figures strongly in Montreal's future plans. A closer look. After an outstanding junior career with the Montreal Junior Canadiens, Jacques Lemaire spent his entire 1966-67 season with the Houston Apollos in the CHL. He put up decent numbers with 19 goals and 30 assists for 49 points over 69 regular season games. Houston finished third in the 6-team CPHL and were a first-round exit from the postseason. However, the team represented the future of NHL hockey with the likes of Andre Boudrias, Danny Grant, Serge Chavard, Bill Plager, Rogie Vachon, and Jerry Desjardins on the roster. The back of the card was certainly correct. Lemaire figured strongly in Montreal's future plans. He helped the team to 8 Stanley Cup championships and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1984. His impact was immediate. In 1967-68, Jacques scored 22 goals during the regular season and finished second in voting for the Calder Trophy as NHL Rookie of the Year. Despite nearly identical offensive numbers, Derek Sanderson of the Boston Bruins took home rookie honors. Lemaire played 853 regular season and 145 playoff games for the Habs between 1967-68 and 1978-79. In each of his 12 seasons in the NHL, he scored at least 20 goals. That includes his final season when he scored 24 goals while playing just 50 games. His best season offensively came in 1972-73. He scored 44 goals and added 51 assists for 95 points. He finished fourth in goal scoring behind Phil Esposito, Mickey Redmond, and Rick McLeish. In the race for the Art Ross Trophy, Lemaire finished fifth behind Esposito, Bobby Clarke, Bobby Orr, and McLeish. The Alex Delvecchio 1960-61 Parker's number 36 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, here is a player who has everything it takes to be a superstar. Now playing his 11th season with the Wings, Delvecchio is still only 29. He plays either center or left wing, but has played more center. Winner of the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy in 1958-59, he made the second All-Star team in 1952-53 as a center, and again in 1958-59 as a left wing, called Fats by his teammates. Delvecchio would win the Lady Byng Trophy 2 more times, 1965-66 and 1968-69. He is one of just 9 players in NHL history to win the award 3 or more times. Frank Boucher of the New York Rangers holds the record with 9 wins. Alex definitely did have a hatred for the penalty box. Over 1,550 regular season NHL games, he sat just 383 penalty minutes. His bad boy year came in 1954-55 when he amassed a whopping 37 minutes. In that 1958-59 season mentioned on the back of the card, Delvecchio was handed just 3 minor penalties over 70 games. The 2 seasons mentioned on the card when he was named a second-team All-Star were the only 2 times he would be selected. However, he did appear in 13 NHL All-Star games. Alex helped the Red Wings to 3 Stanley Cup championships and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1977. The Bill Flett 1971-72 OPG number 47 hockey card. Written on the back of the card. Drafted from the Toronto organization, Bill became a hit in Los Angeles. He was the first LA player to score a hat trick, and he got 3 tricks in 3 seasons. Bill played in 3 different leagues before catching on with LA. Bill also does rodeo work. A closer look. Bill Flett's historic hat trick came on November 5, 1967 at Detroit Olympia against the Red Wings. Bill scored his first in the first period to tie the game at 1-1 after Gordie Howe had put Detroit ahead. Flett then scored the first and last of 5 third-period goals for the Kings, both on the power play. Detroit was up 4-2 after Gordie Howe's second goal of the game in the third before the Kings came roaring back to win 6-4. All Flett's goals were scored on Roger Crozier. That 3-goal performance helped Bill to reach his team-leading 26 goals in his rookie season. Flett finished 4th in the running for the Calder Trophy as NHL Rookie of the Year in 1967-68, behind Derek Sanderson, Jacques Lemaire, and Doug Favell. This was a pretty amazing performance for a guy who was taken in the 18th round of the 1967 NHL expansion draft by the Kings, 103rd overall. He had spent the previous 3 seasons mostly toiling in the CPHL with the Tulsa Oilers, affiliate of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bill Flett played 689 regular season and 52 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1967-68 and 1979-80 with the Kings, Philadelphia Flyers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Atlanta Flames, and Edmonton Oilers. He spent 3 seasons in the WHA with the Oilers. His best season offensively came in 1972-73 when he scored 43 goals for the Flyers. That number was good for 5th in the NHL. Flett helped the Flyers to a Stanley Cup championship in 1973-74. The Bobby Clarke 1975-76 OPG number 250 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, tied for NHL lead in assists last season, won Hart Trophy second time, named captain of the Flyers in 1973. A closer look. In 1974-75, Bobby Clarke tied Bobby Orr of the Boston Bruins for the NHL lead with 89 assists. In 1975-76, Clarke would again have 89 assists. This time, it would be good for sole possession of the league lead, 18 ahead of second place Pete Mahovlich from the Montreal Canadiens. Clarke's 852 career assists in the NHL still rank in 26th overall. Clarke would win the Hart Trophy again in 1975-76, his third and last. He remains one of only 8 players in NHL history to win the award 3 or more times. Wayne Gretzky holds the record, winning the MVP award 9 times. Bobby took over the team's captain role for the Flyers midway through the 1972-73 NHL season. Previously, Ed Van Impe wore the C. Van Impe remained with the club until a 1975-76 trade sent him to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Clarke became just the 3rd captain in franchise history. Mel Bridgman would take over for the 1979-80 season. Bobby Clarke played 1,144 regular season and 136 playoff games in the NHL between 1969-70 and 1983-84, all with the Flyers. He helped the team to 2 Stanley Cup championships and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1987. He played in all 8 games for Canada at the 1972 Summit Series against the Soviet Union. The Bobby Hull 1958-59 Topps number 66 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, only 18 when he joined Hawks last year, Bobby is blonde husky of brilliant promise. A closer look. Bobby Hull's offensive numbers were humble in his 1957-58 NHL rookie season. However, by his 3rd year in the league, he was the recipient of the Art Ross Trophy as the NHL's top scorer. He won the award in 1959-60 with a modest 81 points on 39 goals and 42 assists. He was just a single point ahead of Bronco Horvath of the Boston Bruins. A product of the St. Catharines TP's junior team, Hull would go on to win the Art Ross Trophy 2 more times. He was also a 2-time recipient of the Hart Trophy as National Hockey League Most Valuable Player. Bobby played 1,063 regular season and 119 playoff games in the NHL between 1957-58 and 1971-72, with a short return to the league in 1979-80. Over that time, Hull scored 610 regular season goals. He would also net an additional 303 goals in 411 games in the WHA between 1972-73 and 1978-79 with the Winnipeg Jets. The Bobby Orr 1969-70 OPG number 24 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, age means nothing to Bobby Orr. He's already the NHL's Mr. Everything and has won more trophies in 3 seasons than most players manage in a career. He scores like a forward and has been able to rebound from injuries. A closer look. As flattering as the comments were on the back of this 1969-70 OPG Bobby Orr hockey card, what Orr had done in his NHL career to that point was nothing compared to what he would do starting with the 1969-70 National Hockey League season. In 69-70, Bobby nearly doubled his point total from 64 to 120. It was enough to capture the Art Ross Trophy as the league's top scorer, the first time a defenseman won the award. In fact, he remains the only blue liner to lead the NHL in scoring. He would do it again in 1974-75 with 135 points. He more than doubled his NHL hardware in 1969-70. Prior to the release of this hockey card, Orr had won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year and twice the Norris Trophy as top defenseman. In 1969-70, he would win the Norris and Art Ross, along with the Hart Trophy as MVP and Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. He helped the Boston Bruins to their first Stanley Cup championship since 1940-41. Bryan Watson 1972-73 OPG number 90 hockey card. Written on the back of the card. Super Pest is Bryan's nickname and it's well earned. He's one of the NHL's most daring players. His style has always been a popular one and last year he led the league in penalty minutes with 210. A closer look. Despite his reputation and style of play, the 1971-72 season noted on the back of this card was the only one Bugsy led the National Hockey League in penalty minutes. He finished his career with 2,212 minutes over just 877 regular season games. His 210 minutes in 1971-72 certainly wasn't a career high, however. In 1975-76, he sat 322 with the Detroit Red Wings. The number was good for second in the league, 48 minutes behind Steve Durbano and 15 ahead of Dave Schultz. Brian Watson played in the NHL from 1963-64 to 1978-79 with the Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, Oakland Seals, Pittsburgh Penguins, St. Louis Blues, and Washington Capitals. His career penalty minute total ranks him 42nd all-time in the NHL. His 17 career goals in the league doesn't quite rank him as high. The Clarke Gillies 1977-78 OPG 250 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, possessor of the hardest shot among the Islanders, he's an excellent skater who's continually improving his puck handling each season with the club. He set new single-season club mark by scoring 34 goals for Islanders during 75-76 season. Closer look. His 34 goals scored in 1975-76 no longer even ranks him in the top 50 for the New York Islanders. However, the 38 goals Clarke Gillies scored in 1981-82 places him tied for 30th in team history with Mike Bossy, Pierre Turgeon, Derek King, Pat LaFontaine, and John Tavares. Mike Bossy holds the team record with 69 goals scored in 1978-79. The six-time 30-plus goal scorer was team captain for the Islanders from 1977-78 to 1978-79. He replaced Ed Westfall and was replaced by Denny Potvin. Gillies was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2002, and his number 9 was retired by New York in 1996. Clarke Gillies played 958 regular season and 164 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1974-75 and 1987-88 with the Islanders and Buffalo Sabres. Originally the 4th overall pick by New York at the 1974 NHL Amateur Draft, behind Greg Jolly, Wilf Paymont, and Rick Hampton, he helped the Islanders to 4 consecutive Stanley Cup championships. The Bobby Hull 1974-75 OPG WHA number 50 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, to many people Bobby Hull is Mr. Hockey. He is one of the few people with more than 600 goals in the NHL. He led or tied for the league lead in goals scored 7 times. The Golden Jet has been a first-team All-Star selection 12 times. In his 17 seasons as a pro, he has totaled more than 1,350 points, was leading point getter in Team Canada USSR Series. A closer look. Bobby Hull finished his National Hockey League career with 610 goals. Hull scored another 303 regular season goals over 7 seasons in the WHA. Both leagues combined, Bobby also scored 105 goals in postseason action. Hull remains one of just 20 players to score 600 or more goals in an NHL career. His 610 goals place him 18th all-time, just 2 goals ahead of Dino Ciccarelli. However, Dino played 169 more games over his career. The Canada vs. USSR series noted on the back of the card is the 1974 Summit Series that pitted a team of WHA players against the Soviets. Unlike the 1972 Summit Series, Canada did not come out on top. The Russians won 4 games and tied 3, while Canada won just a single game. Bobby led the 1974 series with 7 goals and 9 points. Alexander Yakushev was a close second with 5 goals and 8 points. Ralph Backstrom from Canada also totaled 8 points with 4 goals and 4 assists. The Dave Schultz 1973-74 OPG number 166 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Dave is the leader of Philadelphia's Mad Squad. He was the NHL's most penalized player last season. He had previously set an AHL penalty mark while playing for Quebec. A closer look. The back of this card was a little behind the times. True, Dave Schultz set an American Hockey League record in 1970-71 with 382 penalty minutes playing for the Quebec Aces. However, he broke his own record the following year, sitting 392 penalty minutes with the Richmond Robins. That AHL record was utterly shattered in 2004-2005. Brian McGrattan of the Binghamton Senators incurred a massive 551 penalty minutes in 71 games. McGrattan sat an incredible 1,051 minutes during his 3 years with Binghamton. Dave Schultz would go on to lead the National Hockey League in penalty minutes 4 times over his career. His record of 472 minutes set in 74-75 still stands today. Dave played 535 regular season and 73 playoff games in the NHL between 1971-72 and 1979-80 with the Flyers, Los Angeles Kings, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Buffalo Sabres. The Dave Williams 1981-82 OPG number 345 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Dave's extremely aggressive style of play has earned him over 2,000 minutes and penalties in NHL. Dave's last amateur club was the Swift Current Broncos of the WCHL in 1973-74. A closer look. The thing that stands out to me the most about this 1981-82 OPG Dave Williams hockey card is the fact he's been designated as a defenseman on both the front and back of the card. Tiger Williams was not a blue liner and spent his entire NHL career at left wing. This card has not been noted as an uncorrected error card because of that, but maybe it should be. After all, the 1975-76 OPG Guy Lafleur card is considered an error for the exact same reason. Tiger was only halfway done after the 1980-81 season. As far as penalty minutes go, he would end his career with a whopping 3,966 minutes. That total leaves him alone at the top of the all-time NHL career penalty minute list. His 35 goals and 345 penalty minutes in 1980-81 with the Vancouver Canucks made him the first to score 30-plus and sit 300-plus. Since, just Al Secord of the Chicago Blackhawks has been able to accomplish this rare feat with 44 goals and 303 minutes in 1981-82. Dave's rare ability to score goals and rack up minutes in the box started in junior with the Swift Current Broncos. In 1972-73, he scored 44 goals while sitting 266 minutes. The following year, he scored 52 and sat 310. Dave Williams played 962 regular season and 83 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1974-75 and 1987-88 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Vancouver Canucks, Detroit Red Wings, Los Angeles Kings, and Hartford Whalers. The Dick Duff 1964-65 Topps number 46 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, scrappy veteran and noted competitor Duff lost favor with Leafs and was traded to Rangers in February '64. Called a second Ted Lindsay. In early years, Dick believes his scoring slump in Toronto due to lack of work. Needs 22 goals to reach 200 mark. A closer look. Dick Duff came to the New York Rangers via a February 22, 1964 trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Going with Duff to the Big Apple were Arnie Brown, Bill Collins, Bob Nevin, and Rod Sealing. Going in the other direction were Andy Bathgate and Don McKenney. Dick's time with the Blue Shirts was short. He played 14 games with the club in 1963-64 and just 29 in 64-65 before being traded to the Montreal Canadiens on December 21, 1964 for Bill Hickey. Duff did not get 22 goals in 1964-65, scoring 3 with the Rangers and 9 with the Canadiens for a total of 12. However, he did surpass the 200-goal mark during his National Hockey League career with a final total of 283. Dick Duff played 1,030 regular season and 114 playoff games in the NHL between 1954-55 and 1971-72 with the Maple Leafs, Rangers, Canadiens, Los Angeles Kings, and Buffalo Sabres. He was a member of 6 Stanley Cup championship teams, 2 with Toronto and 4 with Montreal. Duff was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2006. The Don Lever 1978-79 OPG number 86 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, an excellent skater, Don is at home at either center or left wing. He is possessed with a great amount of self-motivation. A closer look. The photo on the front of this 1978-79 OPG hockey card shows Don Lever as team captain of the Vancouver Canucks. He wore the C for 2 years, 1977-78 and 1978-79, before Kevin McCarthy took over. A February 8, 1980 trade saw the Vancouver fan favorite shipped to the Atlanta Flames along with Brad Smith for Ivan Boldarev and Darcy Rhoda. The Canucks took Lever 3rd overall at the 1972 NHL Amateur Draft behind just Billy Harris and Jacques Richard. Don had an outstanding junior career with the Niagara Falls Flyers. His 61 goals and 126 points in 1971-72 paved the way for Red Tilson Trophy honors as league MVP. In that 1971-72 season, Lever finished second for goals, just 2 away from leader Steve Shutt of the Toronto Marlboros. His point total was just 3 away from leaders and Eddie Powers Trophy winners, Billy Harris and Dave Gardner, both of the Marlboros. Niagara Falls had a mediocre year despite Don's performance. The roster was stacked with future NHL stars like Eric Vale, Jim Schoenfeld, and Wilf Paymont. Don Lever played 1,020 regular season games in the National Hockey League between 1972-73 and 1986-87 but only appeared in 30 playoff games. Along with the Canucks and Flames, Lever also played for the Colorado Rockies, New Jersey Devils, and Buffalo Sabres. Lever's offensive numbers topped out in his third year in the NHL, 1974-75, when he scored 38 goals and totaled 68 points. Late in his career, 1986-87, he was relegated to the AHL by the Sabres and helped their affiliate Rochester Americans to a Calder Cup championship. The Gilbert 1974-75 OPG number 10 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, being traded to Boston after 2 years of backing up Cesar Maniego and Gump Worsley at Minnesota may have been the best thing that ever happened to Gilles. The quick-moving goalie plays the angles as well as anyone. Coming into his prime as a goaltender, most experts predict stardom for Gilles. He has an extra quick glove hand which often robs the opposition. A closer look. Gilbert appeared in a total of 44 games over 4 seasons with the Minnesota North Stars before being sent to Boston. On May 22, 1973, Gilbert was traded straight up to the Bruins for Fred Stanfield. With Jerry Cheevers spending time in the WHA with the Cleveland Crusaders, Gilles jumped right into the number 1 role with the Bruins, appearing in 54 regular season and 16 playoff games. He helped Boston to reach the Stanley Cup final in 1973-74 before losing to the Philadelphia Flyers. Once Cheevers returned to the Bruins for the 1976-77 NHL season, Gilbert found himself again as a backup, albeit he still got into a decent number of games. He once again became a number 1 goalie after a July 15, 1980 trade sent him to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for Rogie Vachon. Gilbert played in 416 regular season National Hockey League games between 1969-70 and 1982-83 with the North Stars, Bruins, and Red Wings. Over that time, he posted a 3.27 goals against average with 18 shutouts. The Gilles Meloche 1976-77 OPG number 36 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, now in his 6th season with the franchise, Gilles is the senior member of the new Denver squad in point of service. A closer look. Error. Gilles is not the senior member of the new Denver squad, aka the Colorado Rockies. He is the new goaltender of the Cleveland Barons. There were 2 franchises on the move prior to the 1976-77 NHL season. The California Golden Seals became the Cleveland Barons, and the Kansas City Scouts became the Colorado Rockies. Gilles Meloche was in his 6th season with the franchise that originally began in 1967-68 as the Oakland Seals. Meloche joined the California Golden Seals for the 1971-72 season. He would play in net for the Cleveland Barons during their 2-year stint in the NHL, and then move on to the Minnesota North Stars for 1978-79 after the 2 teams merged. He would remain with the North Stars until the end of 1984-85. Meloche came to the Golden Seals in a trade with the Chicago Blackhawks on October 18, 1971. Going with him was Paul Smear, with fellow goalie Jerry Desjardins heading in the other direction. Previously, the former 5th-round pick by Chicago played just 2 games with the club during the 1970-71 season. Gilles would appear in 788 regular season games in the National Hockey League between 1970-71 and 1987-88 with the Seals, Barons, North Stars, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The John Busick 1960-61 Topps number 11 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, what year was Brooklyn represented in the NHL? A closer look. The Brooklyn Americans played in the National Hockey League in 1941-42. It was the final season for the franchise previously known as the New York Americans. Despite the name change, the team continued to play home games at Madison Square Garden. In the franchise's 17th and final campaign in the NHL, the Americans finished 7th in the 7-team league and out of postseason contention. Tommy Anderson led the club in scoring and was awarded the Hart Trophy as the NHL's most valuable player. The team's departure created the original 6, with the NHL reduced to 6 teams for the 1942-43 season. A bit about Johnny Busick. The 1960-61 top set consists mostly of all-time greats cards, and when they did feature a current player, very little information was given. The 1960-61 season was Busick's 4th season with the Boston Bruins. He came to the club from the Detroit Red Wings in a July 10, 1957 trade for Terry Sawchuk. Busick went on to play 1,540 regular season and 124 playoff games between 1955-56 and 1977-78 with the Red Wings and Bruins. He helped Boston to 2 Stanley Cup championships, won the Lady Byng Trophy in 1970-71 and 1973-74, and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1981. The John McKenzie 1963-64 Topps number 42 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, John led playoff scorers, then was named unanimous right-wing choice in AHL. Previous trials with Chicago and Detroit won't discourage his chances. A closer look. John McKenzie led the Buffalo Bisons with 20 points on 8 goals and 12 assists over 13 American Hockey League playoff games in 1962-63. The Bisons captured the Calder Cup championship, taking out the Hershey Bears in the final. McKenzie played 45 games for the Chicago Blackhawks in 1963-64. He would play just 5 more games in the minors in 1964-65 with the St. Louis Braves and the CPHL before becoming a true regular in the National Hockey League. Chicago traded away John before the start of the 1965-66 season to the New York Rangers. His time in the Big Apple was short. A career-changing trade sent him to the Boston Bruins midway through 1965-66 in exchange for Reg Fleming. With Boston, his career flourished, with 5 straight seasons with 20 or more goals and 2 Stanley Cup championships. John McKenzie jumped to the World Hockey Association for the league's inaugural 1972-73 season, and he stayed for the duration of the WHA's existence. Over his 7 seasons in the WHA, McKenzie played for the Philadelphia Blazers, Vancouver Blazers, Minnesota Fighting Saints, Cincinnati Stingers, and New England Whalers. The John Ogrodnik 1980-81 OPG number 359 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, had 54 goals and 56 assists for 110 points at Maple Ridge during his junior hockey year of 1976-77. In 2.5 seasons with New Westminster Bruins, he tallied 178 points while playing in 158 games. Detroit holds the NHL record for most consecutive goals in one game. A closer look. After playing most of that 1976-77 season with the Maple Ridge Bruins of the BCGA AHL, John Ogrodnik joined the WHL's New Westminster Bruins for 14 games and played a role in helping the team to not only a league championship but a Memorial Cup championship. In his first full season with New Westminster, 1977-78, John exploded for 59 goals in 72 games. That placed him 8th in the high-scoring league for goal scoring and helped him earn the Jim Piggott Trophy as Rookie of the Year. The Bruins would once again win the Memorial Cup with the help of Ogrodnik, Brian Walter, and Stan Smeel. John would go on to play 928 regular season and 41 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1979-80 and 1992-93 with the Detroit Red Wings, Quebec Nordiques, and New York Rangers. His best season was 1984-85 with the Red Wings when he scored 55 goals and totaled 105 points. The trivia snippet. The Detroit Red Wings still hold the NHL record for most consecutive goals by a team in a game. On January 23, 1944, Detroit hosted the New York Rangers at the Olympia. The score ended up 15-0 as the Red Wings pummeled their guests. Sid Howe was the only player to get a hat-trick in the game. 4 players had 5-point nights: Howe, Murray Armstrong, Joe Carveth, and Don Grosso. Ken McCauley was between the pipes for the Rangers that night. He played all 50 games for the Blue Shirts that 1943-44 season, posting a dreadful 6.24 goals against average. On 3 occasions, an NHL team has scored 13 consecutive goals in a game. Interestingly, Detroit is on the opposite end of one of those games. On January 2, 1971, the Red Wings fell 13-0 to the Toronto Maple Leafs at Maple Leaf Gardens. Don McLeod and Jim Rutherford shared the abuse in the Detroit Nets, facing a total of 49 shots. The Johnny Bower 1959-60 Parker's number 32 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, runner-up the Jacques Plante for the Vezina Trophy. A closer look. The 2.74 goals against average put up by Johnny Bower in 1958-59 was the second best in the league. The numbers put up by Jacques Plante left no doubt as to the Vezina Trophy winner. Plante appeared in 67 of Montreal's 70 games, posting a 2.15 goals against average, with 9 shutouts. Bower played in just 39 games for the Maple Leafs. However, Johnny would get his Vezina Trophy. In fact, he would win 2. Bower captured the prize in 1960-61 and 1964-65, both times with Toronto. 1958-59 was Bower's first season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. After appearing in the full 70 games with the New York Rangers in 1953-54, he appeared in just 5 the following year and 2 in 56-57. After playing exclusively in the AHL in 1957-58, Johnny's career took off when he arrived in Toronto. Johnny Bower played 552 regular season games in the National Hockey League between 1953-54 and 1969-70 with the Rangers and Maple Leafs. He had a career goals against average of 2.51 and recorded 37 shutouts. Bauer was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1976. The Ken Houston 1979-80 OPG number 310 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Ken registered at least 1 point versus every NHL team except Toronto in 1978-79. Ken scored a hat-trick March 8, 1978. Closer look. It's true, Ken Houston did not register a single point against the Toronto Maple Leafs during the 1978-79 regular season. The Atlanta Flames played the Maple Leafs 5 times and won 4 of those games. Interestingly, the Flames met the Maple Leafs in the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. In the best-of-3 series, Houston only played the first game, with Toronto sweeping Atlanta in 2 games. Ken again did not register a point. However, Houston was very involved in a second-period brawl between the two teams in Game 1. Ken picked up a total of 16 penalty minutes, mostly resulting from a misconduct for leaving the bench to join the melee. In all, 224 penalty minutes were handed out in the game. Tiger Williams led the way with 32 for Toronto. Darcy Rhoda had 26, and Willie Flett had 25 for the Flames. The Ken Houston hat-trick. On March 8, 1978, the Atlanta Flames were hosting the Vancouver Canucks at the Omni Coliseum. The game ended in an 8-3 win for the Flames. Houston scored his 17th, 18th, 19th goals of the season, starting at 5:38 of the second period. The first was assisted by Bobby Lalonde and John Gould, while both the second and third were assisted by Ray Como. Houston was also assisted on a second period goal by John Gould for a 4-point night. Cesar Maniego was between the pipes for the Canucks for all 8 goals. On the season, Ken totaled 22 goals. The Lanny McDonald 1975-76 OPG number 23 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Toronto's 5th leading scorer last year despite missing 16 games. First team All-Star selection as junior, strong skater, and has wicked wrist shot. Closer look. The 44 points put up by Lanny McDonald in 1974-75 were good enough for 5th on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Leading the way was Darryl Sittler with 80 points, with Ron Ellis, Dave Keon, and George Ferguson coming in between. Lanny's production would more than double in 1975-76 with 37 goals and 56 assists for 93 points. In 1972-73, McDonald finished 3rd in WCHL scoring, putting up 139 points on 62 goals and 77 assists. Leading the league was his Medicine Hat Tigers teammate Tom Lysiak with 154 points. Lanny was named the first-team All-Star at right wing. The Tigers took out the Saskatoon Blades in the final to capture the championship. Between 1973-74 and 1988-89, Lanny McDonald appeared in 1,111 regular season and 117 playoff games in the National Hockey League with the Maple Leafs and Calgary Flames. He was a 66-goal scorer with Calgary in 1982-83 and won a Stanley Cup championship with the club in 1988-89. Lanny was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1992. The Leo Boivin 1962-63 Topps number 5 hockey card. Written on the back of the card. This short, stocky defenseman is rated as one of the hardest hitters in NHL. Also a good skater and an exciting rusher. Broke in with Maple Leafs and was sold to Boston midway in 1954-55. He has always been a favorite with Boston's fans. Closer look. Leo Boivin was actually original property of the Boston Bruins. A November 16, 1950 trade sent him, along with Fern Fleming, Phil Maloney, and Ken Smith, to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Bill Izanicki and Vic Lynn. After parts of 4 seasons with the Maple Leafs, Leo was back in Boston via a November 9, 1954 trade that saw Joe Cluke go the other way. Boivin then played the bulk of his National Hockey League career in Beantown, putting together a resume that would ultimately put him in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1986. Boivin played 1,150 regular season and 54 Stanley Cup playoff games between 1951-52 and 1969-70 with the Maple Leafs, Bruins, Detroit Red Wings, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Minnesota North Stars. After retiring, he spent time coaching the Ottawa 67s in the OHL and the St. Louis Blues in the NHL. The Lou Nanne 1969-70 OPG number 198 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Lou played part of last season with the North Stars and Coach Blair feels he can help tighten up their defense this season. Lou starred for United States Olympic hockey team. A closer look. Lou Nanne played for the United States at the 1968 Winter Olympic Games. He shared the team captain role with Herb Brooks. The games were held in Grenoble, France, and the U.S. finished 6th out of 8 teams. Nanne would return to captain the U.S. national team at both the 1976 and 1977 IIHF World Championships. In 1976, the tournament was held in Poland and his team finished 4th. The following year, the championship was hosted by Vienna, Austria, and the USA placed 6th. 1969-70 would be the year that Lou became a full-time NHL defenseman. However, it was the end of the line for coach Ren Blair, who was replaced mid-season by Charlie Burns. Lou would play his entire National Hockey League career with the Minnesota North Stars. He appeared in 635 regular season and 32 Stanley Cup playoff games between 1967-68 and 1977-78. He moved on to the general manager's role with the North Stars and was inducted into the IIHF Hockey Hall of Fame as well as the United States Hockey Hall of Fame. The Mark Howe 1977-78 OPG WHA number 25 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, the youngest player in WHA's brief history to score over 100 goals. Mark had 5 hat tricks for Houston Aeros during the 1975-76 season. Equipped with one of the best wrist shots in pro hockey, he teams with his father, Gordie Howe, to form one of the WHA's top penalty-killing duos. A closer look. Mark Howe would have been 21 when he surpassed the 100-goal plateau during the 1975-76 WHA season, the only season of his 6th that he spent in the WHA when he didn't surpass the 30-goal mark was his injury-shortened 1976-77 campaign, shown on the back of this card. Now a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame and known for his play as a defenseman in the National Hockey League, Howe's stats as a forward in the WHA are pretty impressive. In 426 regular season games with the Houston Aeros and New England Whalers, he scored 208 goals and assisted on 296 for 504 points. The Mark Messier 1980-81 OPG number 289 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, one of the strongest players on Oilers' squad, he combines that with outstanding speed and agility. His robust style of play makes him a favorite of the Edmonton fans. A closer look. The 1980-81 NHL season would see Mark Messier double his numbers with 23 goals, 40 assists, and 63 points. By 1981-82, Messier was a 50-goal scorer, and by 1982-83, he topped the 100-point plateau. Not bad for a third-round pick in 1979. Mark's 50 goals in 1981-82 would be the only time he'd reach the plateau. But he certainly could find the back of the net with 694 goals over his National Hockey League career. He topped 100 points 6 times during his career, with his best coming in 1989-90 with 129. The Maurice Richard 1959-60 Parkhurst number 2 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, advancing years and 2 consecutive serious injuries have combined to give Maurice Richard more trouble than any of the left wingers he had to face in NHL competition. A closer look. Indeed, the final 3 years of Maurice Richard's NHL career were injury-shortened. In fact, the 1959-60 season, the last of his career, saw Rocket play the most games since the 1956-57 season. Even then, he appeared in just 51 games for the Montreal Canadiens during the regular season and 8 more in the playoffs. The 1959-60 season was definitely a nice send-off for the Rocket. In his final campaign, the Habs finished first overall by a wide margin. In the playoffs, they swept both the Chicago Blackhawks and Toronto Maple Leafs to capture the Stanley Cup championship. It would be their last of 5 consecutive Cup wins. Rocket Richard finished up his National Hockey League career with 978 regular season and 133 playoff games played between 1942-43 and 1959-60, all with Montreal. He was a Hart Trophy winner in 1946-47 and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1961. The Mike Foligno 1980-81 OPG number 187 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, won OHA awards in 78-79 as the MVP, scoring champion, and top scoring right winger. He's an excellent skater, shooter, and passer with outstanding leadership qualities for Red Wings. A closer look. Mike Foligno had an outstanding season with the Sudbury Wolves in 1978-79, his 4th and final year with the club. As a player, he would return as head coach for 7 years after retirement. Mike scored 65 goals and assisted on 85 for 150 points. He led the league, earning the Eddie Powers Trophy with 6 more points than second-place Tom McCarthy of the Oshawa Generals. That year, Foligno also earned the Red Tilson Trophy as the OHL's most valuable player. The Jim Mann Memorial Trophy also went his way as the league's top right winger. He helped the Wolves reach the semifinals before bowing out to the Peterborough Petes, the eventual 1979 Memorial Cup champion. His rookie year in the National Hockey League was also outstanding. 36 goals and 71 points while appearing in all 80 of Detroit's regular season games made Foligno the runner-up in Calder Trophy voting for Rookie of the Year. The winner, Ray Bourque of the Boston Bruins, took 274 votes while Foligno had 113 votes. Pete Peters, Brian Propp, and Paul Reinhart were also in the running. The third overall pick by Detroit at the 1979 NHL entry draft, behind Rob Ramage and Perry Turnbull and ahead of Mike Gartner, Foligno played 1,018 regular season and 57 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1979-80 and 1993-94 with the Red Wings, Buffalo Sabres, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Florida Panthers. The Mike Palmateer 1981-82 OPG number 351 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Mike established an NHL record last season for the most assists in a season by a goalie with 8, has quick reflexes on the ice. Mike tied for lead with 2 shutouts for the Maple Leafs in the 1977-78 Stanley Cup playoffs. A closer look. That record of 8 assists set by Mike Palmateer in 1981 didn't last long. Grant Fuhr of the Edmonton Oilers shattered the mark in 1983-84 with 14. Fuhr's record still stands today. Palmateer still has the third most, tied with Fuhr, Ron Hextall, and Tom Barrasso. Curtis Joseph is second with the 9 assists he contributed in 1991-92 with the St. Louis Blues. Palmateer's 2 shutouts for the Toronto Maple Leafs during the 1977-78 playoffs equaled Ken Dryden of the Stanley Cup champion Montreal Canadiens. The first blank came in the opening round against the Los Angeles Kings. The second came in the quarterfinals against the New York Islanders. One of Dryden's 2 shutouts came against the Maple Leafs in the semifinal. Interestingly, in those 1977-78 playoffs, Mike picked up a 5-minute major for fighting. In Game 4 of the quarterfinals against the New York Islanders, Palmateer got into a scuffle with Gary Howitt in the third period. Mike Palmateer played in 356 regular season games in the National Hockey League between 1976-77 and 1983-84 with the Maple Leafs and Washington Capitals. Over that time, he posted a 3.53 goals against average with 17 shutouts. The Milt Schmidt 1954-55 Topps number 60 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Mr. Bruin himself, Milt has been with Boston since he joined them in 1937. During the 1939-40 season, he led the NHL in scoring with 22 goals and 30 assists. Milt was top scorer for the Bruins 4 times and scored over 20 goals a season 4 times. He was the NHL's All-Star Center 3 times, and in 1950-51 won the Hart Trophy, National Hockey League's most valuable player. On the ice during the regulation 3-period game of 60 minutes, an average hockey player spends about 23 minutes in actual competitive action. A closer look. In 1954-55, it would be the last season as a player in the NHL for Milt Schmidt. He appeared in just 23 games for the Boston Bruins that year before taking over as head coach for Lynn Patrick. As a coach, Milt brought success, leading the team to the Stanley Cup final in 2 of his first 3 full seasons. In both 1956-57 and 1957-58, the Bruins fell to the Montreal Canadiens. Schmidt did lead the NHL in scoring in 1939-40 with a 9-point cushion over teammate Woody Dumart. In fact, the Bruins took up the first 4 spots in the scoring race. However, there was no hardware for Milt. The NHL wouldn't start giving out the Art Ross Trophy until the 1947-48 season. His best offensive numbers came in 1946-47 when he scored 27 and assisted on 35 for 62 points over 59 games. This placed Milt 4th in the scoring race behind Max Bentley, Maurice Richard, and Billy Taylor. In his 1950-51 Hart Trophy winning season, Schmidt put up 61 points on 22 goals and 39 assists over 62 games. He tied for 4th in overall scoring with Ted Kennedy and Sid Abel. He helped the Bruins squeak into the playoffs, 1 point ahead of the New York Rangers for the final spot. Boston fell to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the opening round. The series went 6 games with the second game ending in a tie. Milt Schmidt played 776 regular season and 86 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1936-37 and 1954-55, all with the Boston Bruins. He won the Stanley Cup twice as a player. Schmidt was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1961. A look at the trivia snippet. The average ice time for an NHL player has come down considerably since the 1950s. The back of the card states that the average was 23 minutes. Now, it is between 15 and 16 minutes for a forward and just over 20 minutes for a defenseman. Paul Coffey 1981-82 OPG number 111 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, accorded a can't-miss label by hockey scouts, Paul was the finest skating defenseman in the Ontario Junior League during the 1979-80 season. For the Kitchener Rangers, he tallied 29 goals and 73 assists for 102 total points in 75 contests. Paul was named to the OPJHL's second-team All-Star team with the Kitchener Rangers in 1979-80. A closer look. Error. It's small, but the Kitchener Rangers and Paul Coffey did not play in the Tier 2 OPJHL. They were in the OMJHL. The 1979-80 season was the last year of the OMJHL before it was renamed the current Ontario Hockey League. What is not an error is the part about Coffey playing 75 regular season games in 79-80. He started out the season with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, appearing in 23 games with that club before shifting to Kitchener. The imbalance in the schedule allowed Paul to play 7 more games than the standard 68. The 102 points Coffey put up with the Rangers in his final year of junior was the second best among blue liners. Doug Crossman of the Ottawa 67s had the highest total with 116, fueled by an amazing 96 assists. Crossman took first-team All-Star honors. The can't-miss label was an understatement. Paul Coffey went on to win the Norris Trophy 3 times, was named a first-team All-Star 4 times, and a second-team All-Star 4 times. He won 4 Stanley Cup championships, 3 with the Edmonton Oilers, and 1 with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Paul holds the NHL record for defensemen with 48 goals during the 1985-86 season, breaking Bobby Orr's mark of 46 goals set in 74-75. Coffey was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2004. Paul played 1,409 regular season and 194 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1980-81 and 2000-2001 with the Oilers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Los Angeles Kings, Detroit Red Wings, Hartford Whalers, Philadelphia Flyers, Chicago Blackhawks, Carolina Hurricanes, and Boston Bruins. The Reg Leach 1972-73 OPG number 51 hockey card. Written on the back of the card, Reg scored 65 goals in his last year of junior hockey and was the captain and leading scorer for the Flin Flon Bombers. His size is a big asset for Reggie, who likes the going on the rough side. He broke into the NHL briefly with Boston but was traded to the Seals last season. A closer look. He may have scored 65 goals in his last year with the Flin Flon Bombers 1969-70, but he scored an amazing 87 goals with the same club 2 years earlier. In 1969-70, his 65 goals and 111 points both led the WCHL. In 1967-68, he led the league in goal scoring by a 30-goal margin. Most of that was due to his setup man, Bobby Clarke. Leach had 87 goals and Clarke had 117 assists. Combined, the two had 299 points and finished 1-2 in the league. The third pick overall at the 1970 NHL Amateur Draft by the Boston Bruins, only Gilbert Perreault and Dale Talon were taken ahead of him. After parts of 2 seasons in the NHL with the Bruins, Reggie Leach was traded to the Golden Seals with Rick Smith and Bob Stewart for Don O'Donoghue and Carol Vadnais. Of course, his career would take off after a May 24, 1974 trade sent him to the Philadelphia Flyers to be reunited with his Flin Flon teammate Bobby Clarke. In his first year with the Flyers, he helped the team to their second consecutive Stanley Cup championship. In 1975-76, the Flyers would reach the final again, but the Montreal Canadiens proved too strong. Still, in a rarity, Leach was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy from the losing side. His 19 goals in 16 playoff games said nothing less than MVP. In the regular season, he had scored 61 goals, which remains a franchise single-season record to this day. Reg Leach played 934 regular season and 94 playoff games in the National Hockey League between 1970-71 and 1982-83 with the Bruins, Golden Seals, Flyers, and Detroit Red Wings. He is a member of both the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame and the Philadelphia Flyers Hall of Fame, but somehow has remained on the outside looking in at the Hockey Hall of Fame.